I'm going to let you talk a little bit about airbrushing and then, and how to
Okay.
incorporate that into your flowers.
Okay. Wafer paper likes airbrush as long as we're not like painting the barn door and applying a lot of color too heavy. Wafer paper also, once it's molded, has a lot of shape to it. And what we want to do with the airbrush is accent and highlight what we've just made with the mold. It's going to be more interesting that way. We're going to use the color of the wafer paper as part of the design. Since the airbrush spray is a cone, just like a flashlight beam, it's going to spray straight in a bullseye. And that's what you see at the top. If I held this leaf up and sprayed straight at it, I would just paint it green. If I turn the leaf on its side and airbrush across the surface like this, I'm going to catch paint on the edges and the ridges of the molded shape. I call it catching paint. And this works obviously really well with leaves in nature. It also works with any other texture mold that you're doing. So you're reinforcing detail. Think of adding color as reinforcing detail rather than just changing the color. Because I can now use a dark green, a light green, I can run a little bit of brown down the center, and you're going to end up with a much more lifelike and realistic end result rather than just taking a white object and turning it into a green object. Awesome. So that's what you're seeing in that slide.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, you talked about how how when you turn things, it changes the cone.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
You see how at the bottom we're literally catching paint. We're catching the edge of the overspray across this shape.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So here's our leaves.
Yes. You can see that's a really good example of how I'm spraying flat and I'm bringing up that leaf into the spray, just on the bottom edge of it. I'm shooting across it, not at it.
This is a great picture, by the way.
Thank
Someone's
you.
got some photo skills.
Well, we do all the photography that you're looking at, so thank you very much. Here we're talking about alcohol-based colors versus water-based colors. We're molding with water. The water-based colors go on very nicely, but you got to be light with it because, again, you get this too wet, you've got a gooey piece of wafer paper. These airbrush colors are so pigmented that you don't need a lot of color. The alcohol-based color that I'm using is the luster. And it has just enough alcohol in it and some other ingredients that it encourages a very, very rapid evaporation of the moisture. So it acts as a kicker. It just is very quick. So I will often use the pearls and the lusters to just accent. My primary color is going down in a blue, and then I've accented with a purple pearl. Or with this leaf, I've done my primary colors, and then I'm going to come in and just give it a tiny, tiny kick of like a leaf or a mint green. And it's, again, to give it that luster or shine or dewiness effect without heavy-handedly just coating the whole thing in pearl. And it's also a way to use much less of the pearl product, which tends to be much more expensive anyway. So you're giving the pearls a base to play with. And you'll notice, again, I'm using different colors and layering them. It doesn't take any longer to airbrush an item 2 or 3 colors as opposed to 3 passes of the same color. So you get a lot better payoff for the effort.
Awesome. This is all stuff that you've taught in your airbrush class that I just think, yay, I know this. This is really good information. So, okay.
And here you see that I'm layering colors. Purple is going down, and it's purple pearl. It's almost invisible. It only catches that purple glint in certain angles or in photography. And I've also airbrushed across. I've caught paint with that blue. That's why you see the ridges so well where the tweezers are. Is, again, I'm taking full advantage of what that mold is already giving me, rather than just painting in a color.
Awesome. And did you attach these before you airbrushed the color onto them, or?
Yes, this is what you're looking at there is the blank version of a molded flower petal. So this 5 piece is all white, and it came out of a box. And this is what I held with the tweezers and airbrushed. So the 5 individual petals have been molded onto my 5-petal mold and allowed to dry in place. And then it's stored until it's color. I just happen to really love the blue with a little bit of purple. It's kind of a fantasy color, but it just works for me. It makes me happy.
It is a good color. And very trendy right now, too. So.
Well, you can... Cocoa butter... the wafer paper likes fats. It likes colored cocoa butter. It likes piping gel because it's a very low moisture content. So you can rim the edges of these petals with lines of gold. I show students how to just take piping gel, rub the edge with a cotton swab, and then just use that cotton swab applied piping gel to pick up loose luster dusts. So it looks very, very pretty, and it's a nice way to add texture, and the wafer paper will support it. You can airbrush with your classic vodka and lusters. Wafer paper doesn't like too much alcohol. Like, you can't replace the water with alcohol and expect it to work. It does this really frizzy, snappy thing, and it just literally does not work. But for little bits of edging, you can get away with it. But again, experiment. There's a nice way to take these flowers and make them look like porcelain. Go ahead and do your edging. That's all trendy right now, and the center of the flower can be one of your button molds instead of a regular center. So again, there's a lot of variety to it.
Very cool. This just honestly opens up a whole new world of, places to go with all of this. It's great.
Yep. Now, assembly, again, is very easy. Here you're seeing unpainted flowers, some loose dragées, and you stack the pieces together. And I'll just put a dollop of piping gel, dead center on, and do the underside of the next layer. So you've got piping gel against piping gel. Lay them over top of each other. If they're not wanting to set flat, put a little weight on top, just like this, and come back in 2 or 3 minutes, and it'll be glued together enough. The piping gel is sticky but flexible and movable. It'll set up 2 pieces together in about 2 minutes. They'll be repositionable for about 10 to 15, depending on how hot and dry the environment is. And then it's just perfectly sturdy. So all of the assembly that you're seeing here was with clear piping gel.
Perfect. And look at how gorgeous they look. I just love it.
And there's little blossoms, there's little flats, and there's 2 different flowers that are assembled there. You can do 2 layers, 3 layers of the petals, just whatever you want.
Awesome. And I love the coloring of those leaves, and the gold tones and the blue and the purplish and pinkish. And
the leaves look really incredible if you airbrush them a green base and then use like an antique gold. So if you're doing an anniversary cake or a celebration cake along those lines, you can go into some fantasy colors that just look so expensive, and they're so light. And because this wafer paper is so light, you don't have to put a wire on each and every thing. You can if you want to. I will use piping gel to glue a wire on the back of a flower. I'll poke it up through the first layer, wrap it around, and then it's literally between the 2 layers of flowers like this. And you could put it on a leaf if you want to, but that's really only when you need something to be up and off of the cake. Otherwise, the piping gel will allow you to have a flower literally stuck to the cake wall and going out to a side like this. And it's so light that you can do things that you just can't do with the conventional weighty pastiage or gum paste flowers or leaves.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea that it's so light, because I know we talk a lot about how, you know, you shouldn't stick wires in cakes and things like that, especially when you're doing competitions and, you know, and so to have something like this that's so light that you can just kind of stick to the side and not have to have it, you know, falling off and weighing down. This is really cool.
And the product it plays well with your whipped frostings and your buttercreams. Buttercreams have enough butter content that it'll hold up. I mean, will it eventually go soggy? Yeah, but just the same as it would if you were using, again, your gum paste or your fondant techniques.